Your psychological power doesn't live in the polite, acceptable versions of yourself. It hides in the exact traits you've spent a lifetime trying to suppress. Modern society trains us to operate in an Eve state. We cultivate a manicured, highly relational existence. We compromise, we follow the rules of our social circles, and we prioritize the comfort of others over our own raw instincts. But ancient Hebrew mythology contains an anomaly that disrupts this neat narrative. Before Eve, there was a first wife. According to texts like the Alphabet of Ben Sira, she was formed from the same earth as Adam, designed as a strict, unyielding equal. Her name was Lilith. When demanded to physically and socially submit to her partner, she refused. She spoke the ineffable name of God, tore down her shelter, and chose to flee rather than let herself be pinned down. When an instinctual drive for autonomy is forced into the background by social conditioning, it doesn't vanish. It merely changes location, moving from the light of the garden into the dark of the exile. Lilith escaped to the desolate shores of the Red Sea. She traded the safety of the garden for an untamed, isolated wasteland, where she could exist purely on her own terms. Over the centuries, patriarchal texts systematically attacked this figure of independent female agency. Kabbalistic writers and medieval amulets rebranded her as a succubus, a strangler of infants, and a demonic creature haunting the night. In modern psychological terms, this is exactly what happens when we banish our rawest, most independent traits. They mutate. The exiled instinct degrades into what psychoanalysts call the shadow. The clinical symptoms of a repressed Lilith complex are highly specific. A person might experience sudden, inexplicable flashes of rage, fall into heavy, unwashed depressions, or feel a sudden, suffocating panic within an otherwise stable relationship. If these states are the result of a missing piece of the self, resolving them requires a deliberate descent into the dark to reclaim the very traits that were once deemed too dangerous to keep. To understand the mechanics of this internal split, we have to look at how suppression physically generates volatile energy within the subconscious. A 13th century Kabbalistic text called the Zohar frames this through cosmic geometry. It states that the sun and the moon were originally created with identical luminosity and equal dignity. The luminaries clashed. To settle the rivalry, God ordered the moon to diminish herself, surrender her independence, and serve the sun. As the moon shrank to comply, she shed a dark, fiery husk, a Klifa. That discarded shell became Lilith. This cosmic fracture mirrors a psychological reality. Shadow energy is the literal byproduct of forced submission. When we shrink to fit a role, the rejected energy has to go somewhere. We see this cosmic split play out daily in the modern psyche. Society rewards the nurturing, compliant Eve persona while aggressively punishing the unbound, unapologetic Lilith instincts. When that exiled Lilith energy eventually breaks containment, it manifests as fiery, unyielding rage. This deep-seated refusal to submit fuels periods of necessary personal rebellion and fierce societal upheaval. Facing this transpersonal shadow in our own subconscious is often terrifying. In dreams, she frequently appears as a predatory winged force, pinning the dreamer down in the dark. But clinical psychology frames this ancient encounter differently. Carl Jung evaluated this specific manifestation of the shadow, the fierce, unyielding anima. Jung viewed this terrifying confrontation as a shamanic ordeal. In his analysis, the shadow's attack is a demand for integration, a violent prompt for the conscious mind to reclaim its dormant power. This leaves us with a highly practical problem. If we cannot banish our instinctual shadow, and destroying it only fractures our psyche, how do we survive it? The texts offer a solution through King Solomon. When faced with two women, one representing the nurturing mother, the other the destructive Lilith, Solomon did not cast either out. He applied a cold, mirroring logic that acknowledged both natures. The psychological equivalent is direct confrontation. The ego must drop its polite defenses, look into the mirror, and fully acknowledge its own capacity for independence, destruction, and boundary setting. Repressing the shadow ensures it will eventually destroy your life from the subconscious up. True psychological justice means giving your wild, uncomfortable instincts a legitimate seat at the table. The final stage of this descent requires active labor. You have to take the dark, exiled traits you left in the wilderness and systematically stitch them back onto your conscious self. Reclaiming your internal Lilith does not turn you into a monster. It gives you back your teeth. It restores the lost boundaries, the raw vitality, and the ability to say no without guilt. We have to abandon the pursuit of the flawless, compliant paper garden. A psyche built only on obedience is fragile. Real stability comes from a genuine, messy completeness. True psychological enlightenment is not found by staying safely within the rules. It is earned by surviving your own wilderness, looking at your demons, and finally bringing them home.